Shalom everyone, it is good to see you again in God's presence. I would like to remind everyone that our Connect group is still conducted via online and I advise everyone to stay connected to our CG. For more information regarding our CG, you can find out on the screen here. And now it is the time to give our offering. You can do so by scanning the QR code you can see on the screen here. Let's pray. Father God, we thank you for all the blessing that you have given to us, for everything you have done for us. Now we would like to give our offering. Let it please you, and we give our offering with our full heart. In Jesus' name we pray, Amen.
Orang yang suka memuji akan kuat roh doanya. Orang yang berdoa pasti berakhir memuji. Karena Allah bertata di atas pujian. Siapa memuji, Allah mengatasi hidupnya. The Year of Praise, tahun pujian menjadi sebuah petualangan yang tiada dua. Menjadi sebuah pelajaran hidup yang langsung dari Kristus. Menjadi sebuah pengalaman yang indah. Waktu kita memuji Tuhan, seluruh kerajaan itu berdiri di sampingmu. Waktu kita memuji, seluruh kerajaan Allah dan kereta-keretanya yang tidak kelihatan berkuda dan berapi-api itu berada di kanan kiri. Semakin fisik kita lemah, roh kita semakin memuji Tuhan. Semakin jasmani kita terbatas, semakin rohani kita tidak boleh dibatasi. Welcome to the Year of Praise and Provision. Mari kita mengizinkan Tuhan merajut rancangan yang belum pernah kita bayangkan.
Namamu kudus, kudus dan agung. Engkaulah Raja berkuasa dan benar. Kami bersuka mengangkat suara bagimu Raja teragung samanya. Tak terbandingkan oleh berkat dunia, kebenaran-Mu membebaskan, ubahkan segalanya. Hanya Kau yang terbesar, Kau terbesar, kekal selamanya. bersama-sama. Tak terbandingkan oleh megahnya dunia, kebenaran-Mu membebaskan, ubahkan segalanya. Tak terbandingkan oleh megahnya dunia, kebenaran-Mu membebaskan, ubahkan segalanya. Oh, hanya Kau yang terbesar, Kau terbesar, kekal selamanya. Hanya Kau yang terdahsyat, Kau terdahsyat, Yesus selamanya. Kau terbesar. Oh, berikan sorak-sorai sekali lagi buat Tuhan Allah kita. Come on. Hanya Kau anjuranku, hidupku di tangan-Mu. Kau Tuhan sanggup pulihkan, ubahkan hati yang hancur. Oh, aku milik-Mu selamanya. Bentuk hidupku, jadikan seperti-Mu, serupa dengan-Mu sampai selamanya. Ku mau bersinar selalu, beritakan karya-Mu. Hanya Kau anjuranku, hidupku di tangan-Mu. Kau Tuhan sanggup pulihkan, ubahkan hati yang hancur. Oh, aku milik-Mu selamanya. Oh, aku milik-Mu selamanya. Bentuk hidupku, jadikan seperti-Mu, serupa dengan-Mu sampai selamanya. Ku mau bersinar selalu, beritakan karya-Mu. Amin. Sebab Kau Tuhan, jalan kehidupan, masa depan, cerah membentang. Sebab Kau Tuhan, jalan kehidupan, masa depan, cerah membentang. Sebab
kasih ya Tuhan, Kau yang selalu membentuk hidup kami jadi serupa dengan-Mu. Kami menyembah-Mu ya Tuhan. Kami angkat tangan kami, hidup kami bagi-Mu. Kau melukis wajahku di hadapan-Mu dan mengukir namaku di telapak tangan-Mu sampai masa tuaku. Kau tetaplah Tuhanku yang akan selalu menggendong hingga putih rambutku. Kemurahan-Mu itu membuatku terteguh. Ku bulatkan hatiku mengikut-Mu. Ku angkat tanganku Yesus, memuji perbuatan-Mu. Sungguh tiada terukur kasih setia-Mu. Dalam naungan sayap-Mu ku mau terus menyembah-Mu. Kasih-Mu terukir di lubuk hatiku. Ku angkat tanganku, ku angkat tanganku Yesus, memuji perbuatan-Mu. Sungguh tiada terukur kasih setia-Mu. Dalam naungan sayap-Mu ku mau terus menyembah-Mu. Kasih-Mu terukir di lubuk hatiku. Mari nyanyikan bersama-sama. Kau melukis wajahku di hadapan-Mu dan mengukir namaku di telapak tangan-Mu sampai masa tuaku. Kau tetaplah Tuhanku yang akan selalu menggendong hingga putih rambutku. Kemurahan-Mu itu membuatku terteguh. Ku bulatkan hatiku mengikut-Mu. Ku angkat tanganku Yesus, memuji perbuatan-Mu. Sungguh tiada terukur kasih setia-Mu. Dalam naungan sayap-Mu ku mau terus menyembah-Mu. Kasih-Mu terukir di lubuk hatiku. Ku angkat tanganku Yesus, memuji perbuatan-Mu. Sungguh tiada terukur kasih setia-Mu. Dalam naungan sayap-Mu ku mau terus menyembah-Mu. Kasih-Mu terukir di lubuk hatiku. memuji perbuatanmu, sungguh tiada terukur kasih setiamu. Dalam naungan sayapmu ku mau terus menyembahmu, kasihmu terukir di lubuk hatiku. Sungguh tiada kasih setiamu. Ku mau terus menyembahmu, kasihmu terukir di lubuk hatiku. Ku angkat tanganku Yesus, memuji perbuatanmu, sungguh tiada terukur kasih setiamu. Dalam naungan sayapmu ku mau terus menyembahmu, kasihmu terukir di lubuk hatiku. Mari kita sembah Dia. Haleluya. Kasihmu itu buatku terteduh. Kami angkat suara kami, kami angkat hati kami, angkat tangan kami, menyembahmu Yesus. Sungguh hadiratmu membuat kami tenang. Kami mau terus melekat denganmu. Biar kami menyembahmu terus ya Tuhan, di dalam hadirat-Mu, dalam naungan sayap-Mu. Ku angkat tanganku, ku angkat tanganku Yesus, memuji perbuatanmu, sungguh tiada terukur kasih setiamu. Dalam naungan sayapmu ku mau terus menyembahmu, kasihmu terukir di lubuk hatiku. Ku angkat tanganku Yesus, memuji perbuatanmu, sungguh tiada terukur kasih setiamu. Dalam naungan sayapmu ku mau terus menyembahmu, kasihmu terukir di lubuk hatiku. Kasihmu terukir di lubuk hatiku, kasihmu terukir di lubuk hatiku. Ku datang padamu, Bapa terang, apa adanya, tiada yang ku sembunyikan. Yang kau lihat pada aku, kau minta bukan sempurna yang kau rindukan. Ku tak berpura-pura, ku tanggalkan pembelaanku, ku lepaskan setiap topengku. Ketika ku datang apa adanya, kan ku lihat kau apa adanya. Di sanalah ku terima anugerah, aku diterima. Aku diterima. Ku datang padamu, Bapa terang apa adanya. Tiada yang ku sembunyikan, yang kau lihat, yang kau lihat padaku, semuanya ku berikan kepadamu apa adanya. Hatiku milikmu. Ku datang padamu, berterang apa adanya. Tiada yang ku sembunyikan, yang kau lihat padaku, semuanya ku berikan kepadamu apa adanya. Hatiku milikmu, apa adanya, apa adanya. Hatiku milikmu, apa adanya. Hatiku milikmu.
Hi, Shalom. Good morning, church. It's a great privilege and pleasure of mine to be able to speak to you today. Even though we can't be in the same room and I can't see you, but I know that in the Spirit of God there is no distance. I want to speak to you this morning from my heart. I want to speak to you this morning from what God has put on my heart, from the heart of God in the depth of the scripture. I'm entitling my message today, How to Come Back from a Setback. It is inevitable, unavoidable that in life we're going to have ups and downs. Remember that every valley is a preparation for the next mountain. And the mountain that God gives us is not the peak of our lives. And so God takes us through another valley, not as a matter of punishment, not as a matter of abandonment, but as a matter of preparation for the next mountain higher than the one before. Every one of us is going to be going through ups and downs, setbacks. Setbacks is part of the spirit-filled life because it is the spirit that gives us the power for a comeback from a setback. A setback may happen because of a miscalculation, because of mistake, because of a sacrifice we've had to make, because of sin, and sometimes because of events and situations beyond our control. But it is the Spirit of God, the Spirit who resides within us, who will never leave us. It is that same Spirit who is greater than the spirit that is in the world, who will cause us to have a comeback. Let's look at a portion of scripture today, because comebacks are in the Bible. Every person whom God has used in the Bible has had to come back from a setback. Let's look at the scripture, Exodus chapter 3, verses 1 to 4. And I'm going to anchor my message this morning on this scripture. So let's read together, and I'm reading to you from the English Standard Version. Exodus chapter 3 and verses 1 to 4. Now, Moses was tending the flock of his father-in-law, Jethro, in the priest of Midian. And then Moses, he led that flock up the mountain through the wilderness to that place called Horeb, the mountain of God, Sinai. And there, while Moses was tending that sheep, there the angel of the Lord appeared to Moses in the most unusual manner. The angel of the Lord appeared to Moses as in flames of fire that was within a bush. Now Moses, he saw that flame of fire. He saw that the bush was on fire, but that the fire did not consume the bush. So Moses, he thought, I will go over and I will see this strange sight. Why the bush does not burn up. When the Lord saw that Moses had gone over to take a closer look at the bush, then God called out to Moses from within that bush, called out, Moses, Moses. And in verse 4, Moses said, here I am. God bless the reading of His Word. I want to say to you, God has a plan for every one of us. We know that. We feel that, we sense that, we believe that. We've experienced parts of that in our lives, that God has a plan for us. God's plan for our lives does not change even when we make a mistake. Why was Moses in the wilderness of Midian? Well, because of what could have been seen as a mistake or a miscalculation. Now, we know the life of Moses. And Moses, he was born into a Hebrew family at a time when the Hebrews were in Egypt. And when Moses was born, the king of Egypt, Pharaoh, had sent out a command that all Hebrew infants were to be killed. Somehow, Moses was spared. And without making the story longer, Moses was saved from being slaughtered. Moses ended up in the palace of Pharaoh. Now Moses' life had changed. He was now no longer living as a member of the Hebrew slaves. He had now been promoted. He's become member of the royal household. And Moses grew up in that privileged upbringing. It would seem as though Moses was chosen by God for a special plan, and Moses had been protected from the harshness of life that his people faced. And so Moses grew up. And the Bible tells us it was 40 years before Moses, as he sensed in his heart, and he was to have a destiny in being a person that was going to make a big difference in the lives of his people. Not the Egyptians, but the Hebrews. So Moses went over and tried to show to them that he was called by God for that plan. Well, you know the story. Moses went too far, killed an Egyptian. The Hebrew people knew about it, and they were not impressed. They were not convinced that Moses was to be an instrument in God's hands for their deliverance. And Moses ran. You could say that this was a mistake, that Moses should not just have minded his business. Moses, having been lifted out of slavery, shouldn't have gone back and interfered and bothered about the difficulty of his people. He should have just understood that he had escaped that problem. But no, he had to go back. You can call that a mistake. You can call that a miscalculation. You can call it destiny. But no doubt, it was a setback, because Moses now had to run away, and he was rejected by the people that he thought he was supposed to make a difference in. It's a setback. So for the next 40 years, the Bible tells us in Exodus chapter 3 verse 1, the first verse of that passage that we just read, Moses' life was so routine. Just 40 years is encapsulated in that first verse. His life in that 40 years was just spent with the flock of sheep. Not even with human beings, with that flock of sheep, from the palace to the wilderness. It was a setback. Can you come back from a setback? I think if you think you've gone through failures, you've gone through situations which were hard, situations which seemed to be a retreat from the progress that you had achieved, it wouldn't have been as big a fall as what Moses experienced from the palace to the wilderness. And his life was just about being another man's employee, even though it was his father-in-law. But Moses, for 40 years, was just an employee. But that's my point. And that's a point that you and I have to remember. It all starts with coming back from your setback. And how do we come back from our setback? Because if we cannot come back from our setback, God cannot use us. I know God has a plan for our lives, but part of that process, the process for the plan, is that we're going to have to go through setbacks. And that is going to be the moment of truth, whether we can come back from that setback. The plan comes from God. The power is in our hearts. But the decision and the will and the choice to come back from that setback is ours. If you and I, when we face our setbacks, can determine in our hearts that we're going to bounce back no matter what, God can use us again. When I do marriage, premarital counseling, and couples ask me this question, Pastor, could you ask God and to reveal to us, to reveal to all of us, if we, the couple, are meant to be together, as though getting married is about just hearing a voice. What I think getting married is about is that you want to be with a person who knows that life is going to be full of ups and downs, for better or for worse, for poorer or for richer, in sickness and in health. In all circumstances, that person is able to have a friendship with God. That person is able to have a partnership with God, an intimacy with God, to tap into the power of God, to rise up from every setback. So I ask these couples to do a life chart. And you can see on the screen a life chart, examples of 3 life charts. Life chart number 1, flat. Life chart number 2, kind of a V shape, going down, coming up. Life chart number 3, it's kind of a flat thing, and then it's just going up. It has no steep V-shaped decline. And I've had people draw their life chart from the time that they are young, and a life chart is when you tell us what your life has been like. Some people are just not realistic. They somehow shut out all the difficult times of your life, and then they claim that your life has always been very good. God is good all the time. That's a good attitude to have, but we need to be realistic to understand that there are moments when we're going to go through the valley. Every person that God has used has been called, has been prepared, has been anointed while they were in the valley. And if you're going to be denying, or if you're going to be often asking somebody to lay hands on you so that you can escape the valley before your time, you are shortchanging the process. I always tell the couples, right? Marry a person who has gone through a setback and has come back from it. That's the kind of person that you want to spend your life with. And so, the moment of truth was coming for Moses. Whether or not Moses was the person who was able to bounce back from his setback. I want to share with you 3 things that I think you and I can apply from that truth that we saw in that scripture, that passage of scripture. Is there a way back? Yes. Key number 1, 3 keys. First key, be consistent. Consistency is greater than intensity. There are lots of people who have moments of great intensity, great focus and concentration. They want to do something really big. They want to go on a 3-day fast. They want to go on a 20-day fast. They want to go on a 40-day prayer. These are all good things to do. My question is, there's 365 days in the year. What do you do after your 40 days is over? It's more important than what happens in that 40 days. Consistency will always beat intensity. Moses' 40 years was not filled with intense moments of spectacular events. Moses' 40 years was just summarized in verse 1. For 40 years, it was his job to take that flock up the mountain. Just feed that flock consistently. Now, of course, we understand why he was going up that mountain. It's not because that mountain was going to be able to feed that flock. And he kind of pitied the flock because they were walking through the wilderness and they're not going to be able to feed on anything because it was barren land. For 40 years, Moses was trudging up that mountain because he somehow sensed it was that place that was going to give him fellowship with God. It's not that we believe certain places bring us closer to God, physical, geographical places. No. But it was just that desire and that hunger which molded his heart, molded his character. It prepared him for what was to come in the years ahead. But it also caused God to mark him out. Mark the man who is consistent day in, day out, week in, week out, year in, year out, even if it is 40 years. Consistency will always beat intensity. So, I think consistency is a sign of a person who has this resilience, who has this grit, who refuses to back down, who refuses to lose. Even if things are hard, he chooses not to give up. That's what I call grit. You and I, we have in us a call and a destiny to be great. But to be great, we need to have grit. I want to read to you this quote from the book Grit, written by Angela Lee Duckworth. And it's a passage, or it's a definition of grit which I see over and over again in the Bible. Grit is passion. Grit is perseverance. Grit is this ability to stick with long-term goals. Grit is this ability to day in, day out, stick to your future. It is to work really hard to make that future reality. It's not giving in, it's not giving up, but it's giving all to make it happen. No matter what the voices around you say, even if the people who should know better do not recognize the plan of God in your life, you and I should respond consistently to what we know God has dropped into our hearts. Point number 2. We need to build foundations. Why does coming back from a setback take a long time? Because it takes time to build foundations. Foundations are important because we don't want to be shooting stars that are bright today and then disappeared tomorrow. We want to be, when we have been launched by God into orbit, we want to be on a trajectory that is continuously on an upward trend. And if there are moments when there is a need for us to be hidden, a hidden season, it is okay. We can take it because we have a foundation which is linked with God, aligned with God, which is attached to God. That foundation is invisible. What was Moses doing 40 years going up that mountain? There's no account, there's no evidence of anything spectacular. There's no evidence that he was feeling the goosebumps. There's no evidence that, he was rolling in holy laughter. There's no evidence that he was having angelic visitations. There was no evidence that he heard even a voice, even a still small voice. But no, Moses sensed that something was being imparted into his life, something was being built into him. Friends, every moment that you are in the presence of God, and even if there is nothing happening on the outside, know this, there is something happening inside. You don't have to feel something for it to be happening. You don't have to see something for it to be happening, because the foundation is intangible, it is invisible. Sometimes it cannot be perceived, and sometimes it is happening without even the slightest awareness that it is happening. I'll take you to my third point, and I'm going to end here. My first point was consistency beats intensity. We need to be resilient people that are committed to our future, committed to walk in ways that are going to cause our future to become reality. Secondly, we just need to be people that understand when nothing seems to be happening, there is something happening. And the third point is this: we need to become heart smart. It is this foundation that I was talking about in the second point. It makes our heart smart. Gives us good instincts, intuition, and wisdom. The supernatural, it doesn't have to be spectacular. It can happen in the most natural of manners, but it is still supernatural. Become heart smart. Moses, it was a hot day when Moses was walking up that mountain, and there was a bush on fire. Now, a bush on fire in the wilderness is a normal sight. And so Moses had passed. If we read that passage carefully, it says that Moses had actually passed that bush. He didn't even walk closer to that bush. And I suppose that was because he didn't think that that was an extraordinary or abnormal sight. It's a sight that he had seen so often. But as he had passed by, something clicked in his heart. Something clicked in his mind. I see that fire. The bush is on fire, but it's not burning up as it should. And so he became curious. Being curious is what I mean by being heart smart. Being curious is going to cause us to be a people that would want to spend more time with God. Just not just because we're hungry, but we're curious. What if I spend a little bit more time with God? What if I went up and spent some time with this person who, I don't know why, but that person's been on my mind. What if I talk to them? Maybe something will click, something that is meant to be a key for that person's life or my life will happen if I were to just spend some time talking to them. Maybe I should just get involved in this particular ministry. And as I do that, something will happen. Just becoming curious. All right? Not everything is to be done based on a confirmed understanding of the will of God. Sometimes it is about being curious. Moses was curious. I don't know about you, but if I approached a bush in a wilderness which was on fire, and then it seemed like something out of that bush was calling my name, I'm unlikely to be responding. I'm unlikely to feel calm and composed. I'm probably gonna just take off. Not only Moses did not take off. You see, that voice called out, Moshe, Moshe. Hebrew for Moses. Moses is the anglicized form. Moshe, Moshe. There wasn't a calling card in that voice. It wasn't saying, Moshe, Moshe, know that I am the Lord God of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob. No, there was no calling card at that time. It was just Moshe, Moshe. It's kind of like when I call my kids, when they were younger, I never used to call them just by their name once, when a parent calls you twice. It is a moment of great importance. Moshe, Moshe. It's a sign of being intimate. And there was no calling card, no introduction. So in verse 4, Moses' response is a fruit of consistency, the invisible foundation, and a heart that had become smart. It wasn't even a question. Who is that? Who are you? Is this real? No, it was a natural, fluent, smooth response. Here I am, Lord. You see that 40 years walking up that mountain? That consistent habit had built an invisible foundation. His heart had become smart. Who knows? That angel of the Lord probably had been in that bush for years. But there was going to be no intersection, there was going to be no visitation, because Moses' heart was not yet smart. That was the moment, because the Bible says that God only called out to Moses from that bush when he saw that Moses was now turned and approaching towards that bush. There's something about God that we got to understand there. Until we are ready to come back from our setback, God doesn't press the green light. I want to conclude by saying this. Life happens to everybody. But we got to ask ourselves, right? If what happens to us, okay, all the setbacks, the disappointments. I was ministering to this lady who, she was divorced 4 years ago. She's still not gotten over the divorce. 4 years after the divorce. She's still kind of depressed about it. She's still very weepy about it. And the divorce happened through no fault of hers. And so it came to a point where I told her, I can't try to always comfort you. I got to speak the truth to you, even if that truth might be a little bit uncomfortable, not what you want to hear. I said to her, if whatever happened to you is all that happened to you, then you are never going to find out what God's purpose in your life actually is all about. Now, if you want to find out what God's purpose in your life is all about after this setback, and what you do after what happens to you is not as important as what happens in you. How do you respond to this? Circumstances happens to everybody, but it's our choice that follows that circumstance that determines if this is going to be a circumstance that causes us to be more than overcomers, or is this a circumstance that is going to cause us to be paralyzed and we're going to become people who are always saying, under the circumstances. I am under the circumstances. If what happens to you is all that happens to you, there will be no comeback. But if what happens to you is not as important as what happens in you, wow. Church, this is what I want to say. If what happens to you overcomes... Sorry, let me say this again, okay? Because I'm a bit too excited. I'm getting... My words are getting a little bit too jumbled up. Let me say this again, right? If what happens in you can overcome what happens to you, then there's no limit on what can happen through you. Let me say this again because I'm excited. If what happens in you overcomes what happened to you, then there'll be no limit to what God can do through you. Mawar Sharon, Singapore, God has a great plan to work not just in you, but through you. For it is the pleasure of the Father to do good works in you and through you. God bless you.